What's going on, guys? How you doing? Hopefully you're doing well. I want to make a video talking about this subject because it's interesting, and I somewhat talked about this before because I knew somebody who was personally going through a lawsuit about plagiarism. Not many people actually go forward with this because of it being very difficult to prove, stuff like that. It usually has to be very blatant, or there just has to be absolute proof that there was ties or something, and then for things to go forward, for like, say, lawyers to be like, all right, I think we got this in the bag, especially to go up against like lawyers that are tied to big record labels because they have so much money. It's like, how are you gonna win against these people? It has to be very concrete. And the latest thing that everybody's talking about in the music industry right now is Dua Lipa. I'm not 100% sure that's how you pronounce her name. I'm assuming it's that, Dua Lipa, right? So she had a song called Levitate or Levitating or something, and I've heard it passing like radio or being in the store. I've heard the song. It's a bop, right? But apparently the song was stolen from a band. They're kind of a reggae kind of a style band called Article Sound System, and they have a song called Live Your Life. And what I want to do in this video, I just want to point out somebody mashed them together and then, match the tempos and stuff so you can really see for yourself if it was indeed stolen. So we're going to check this out here. I have heard this, and I think it's pretty obvious, but I wanted to just share it with you guys and see what you thought about this. So it's gonna start off. All right. So like you hear that, like that's a bop. Like that definitely is extremely catchy, right? So you see how insanely similar that is. Like you hear that. Like the instruments, like the chord progression is pretty much the same. The melody is pretty much the same. Dun 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 dun. Like, kind of hard to be a coincidence. Now just putting the acapella over the Live Your Life beat, which is actually a pretty good mashup. It actually sounds really cool. Like, it sounds pretty badass. And then the acapella from Live Your Life on the Dua Lipa Levitating instrumental. Like, it's actually, like, this is... The funny thing is, like, all this mashed together is actually pretty great, I kind of like how this sounds. So, but you see, it mashes so well together because they're so insanely similar, right? So, this is the thing. I don't know anything about Dua Lipa. I imagine she's just like 90% of all pop stars, where they sign to a label and then the label makes them an image that label makes them. They hire a bunch of people. They get, there's a bunch of writers that sell stuff. And then she ended up with this song called Levitating. And so, I don't know how many people worked on this song. I'm sure it was probably like 4 or 5 people. It's usually kind of the standard. And then you have somebody within those people that worked on it, somebody heard this song, Article Sound System, which I think the song was back in like 2017 or something when I looked it up. And they heard it, they were inspired, they ripped it, and then they took it to their team, made something around it. They probably thought, this guy's a genius. Like, man, this is a bop, dude. Good job. And this dude in the back of his head is like, And some theories is that people do this a lot, hoping that they never get caught, or they do this that by the time they do get caught, it's really, they're never going to take the heat for it. It's always going to be Dua Lipa, right? Dua Lipa, whose probably sole job was just to sing on this, right? Just sing on it. Maybe tweak a couple of things here and there, like lyrically, maybe. But then like so she's not really that responsible for this. And to be honest, I don't know anything about Dua Lipa. I don't know anything about this person. If I type in her name, I don't. Maybe I've heard some of her other songs. Let me look that up real quick. This all sounds the same. So it sounds like she has like a genre that's like The Weeknd. Like before The Weeknd became insanely famous, he was just like an R&B stud. Like back in like 2011 with like the Birds and all that kind of stuff. Coming Down. He had like he didn't have a genre, but then now he has a genre. He's like the 80s guy, right? It seems like she has like a certain genre, but I haven't heard any of these songs. Yeah, this has like almost 600 million plays. I've never heard it. I've only heard the Levitating one, but it's also because, man, that shit is a bop. It really is, and it's because obviously that reggae guys they knocked it out of the park with that one, and it translates really well to pop. But it's just unfortunate that no credits given whatsoever. Now, I guess the main reason I'm making this video is I want to know what you guys think about this, because I think some of this stuff is kind of complicated when it comes to this, because you hear a lot of people say, even some of the greatest artists and musicians out there that say like the best artists steal. And I say, well, define steal, because to me, stealing is something more on the lines of what's happening with this. But then there's other stuff that like I don't really agree. Like, who's that? There's an artist that I can't remember her name, but apparently Paramore had to get writing credits for the song because it sounded very similar to Misery Business. So it's this, Olivia Rodrigo, Good For You. Let me see. See if I... So pretty much you're hearing that. Now Paramore, whoa, I never meant to brag. So you see that? So Paramore got some writing credits for this, and in my opinion, I don't think it's good enough. Like, I think this is enough to be like, this is inspired but not stolen. Like, you heard the original and you hear Misery Business and you're like, yeah, it sounds very similar, but it's not the same. Like, not enough to where I would want to do anything about it. If I were Paramore, I'd be like, yeah, that sounds very inspired, but it's definitely a different song. But like that Levitating one, it's so insanely similar. Like, to the point where just even, like, set the melody. Dun, 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 dun. There's differences in the other one, the Misery Business, Good For You. There's definitely differences in the melody where it kind of gets close. It's like, good for you. But then you have to think that Misery Business is in a different key. So you have to really bring it up. And you don't really have to change the key for Levitating, but you just have to kind of like, slow the things down and match it up for the tempo. So I think it's much more blatant, and I think there's differences where I think good musicians do borrow. Like, even myself, I'm inspired by a lot of stuff. Like, sometimes I'll hear like just some background ambiance, some stuff. Like, I'm watching like a documentary or something, and I'll hear something. I was watching like a UFC like documentary when they do those fight countdowns or whatever before a big pay-per-view, and then there was like this score that was playing, and I was like, damn, that's awesome. And it inspired me to write a riff. But like that's basically where I get my ideas from. Like, I remember back in the day, my local hometown, there was a band called Blackheart Eulogy. Actually, Alex Lopez, who was the drummer of Suicide Silence, he was the lead guitarist in that band. And there was like a rumor spreading around that most of his riffs, Alex would write his riffs basically inspired by the Black Dahlia murder. Like, there's some stuff that I can see where it's coming from, but it's not the same. It's not like, oh, that's exactly the riff. That's just, I'm like, no, I can see that he was inspired by the Black Dahlia Murder, just like the Black Dahlia Murder was inspired by Carcass and At the Gates, like, so that's totally fine. All day, all night, and then like moonlight, star, whatever the lyrics were. It's the same thing. Like, it's just like, come on, just, it's like Mad Libs, right? Just change a few things here, but it's already laid out for you. That's good for you. Can't say the same thing. So I feel like those are the differences, right? Like, I think you could get away with something that Olivia Rodrigo and her writers, whoever wrote that song, what they did. I think they can get away with that. I think this is just too much. And then the one thing that's obviously off limits is just 100% just stealing, right? Which we've seen stuff like that happen to. I mean, I've had it happen to me on a small level. I plan on making a video about it, but it's going to take a little more time for me to make the video because I also want to record the song that I never recorded, that I taught to somebody and then they took it to a band, right? I want to record it, and then so I want to make the video, and then I want to record it how it's supposed to sound. So that's going to take a while to make, and that's the only thing that's like, all right, don't just steal people's tracks, right? Don't just steal their songs, right? Especially because you think you can get away with it. But anyway, this is just my opinion on the situation. I want to know what you guys think because, I don't know, maybe you guys think I'm overreacting. Maybe you think that, like, oh, no, like, yeah, it is pretty obvious, but at the same time, it is changed enough, and who cares? Let me know what you think. And, more videos to come. Appreciate you guys, and take care.